Here's the truth they don't put on posters. No applause. No witnesses. No safety net. Just you and the clock, bleeding minutes into the floor. It's 4:30 a.m. The city is asleep. Your phone is dead quiet. This is where you're either made or erased. He trained when no one watched. Not because it felt good, but because comfort was the enemy. Every single rep was a vote against weakness. Every mile was a firm refusal to rot. Every early morning was a quiet war won without permission from anyone. You see, pain didn't motivate him. Pain educated him. It taught him what breaks and what survives. And he learned fast. Motivation lies. Energy will always fade, but discipline stays. So he built discipline like a weapon. Cold, reliable, sharp. When nobody clapped, he added more weight. When nobody checked in, he checked his own form. When nobody believed, he went longer. This isn't about talent. Talent begs for attention. Real work doesn't need to. He stopped explaining himself. Stopped posting his progress. Stopped asking for approval from people who are still sleeping in. Silence became his greatest advantage. While others talked, he sharpened his blade. While others were busy planning, he executed. There's a moment, right before the sun rises, when your mind starts to bargain. It whispers, skip today. You should recover. Just do it tomorrow. That's weakness trying to negotiate. He learned to end the conversation. Because domination isn't loud. It's consistent. It's boring. It's merciless. He trained injured, not broken injured. There's a huge difference. One lets you make excuses. The other forces you to adapt. He learned to move forward with damage, because life won't pause for you to heal. And excuses don't pay interest. The gym lights flickered. The floor was cold. The mirror didn't care about his feelings. Good. He didn't need encouragement. He needed standards. So he set them high and enforced them daily. No moods. No mercy. While others were out chasing cheap dopamine hits, he was chasing proof. Proof that he could show up tired. Proof that he could finish a workout completely alone. Proof that he could outlast that quitting voice inside his head. He understood something very early on. The world rewards outcomes, not your effort. And outcomes come from repetition under pressure. Pressure creates clarity, and clarity creates dominance. He trained when no one watched, so that later, when everyone looked, there was absolutely nothing to explain. No speeches, no stories, just presence. The presence of a man who doesn't flinch, doesn't rush, and doesn't need anyone's validation. Because he already paid the price in the dark, in the silence, and in full. This isn't motivation. This is a warning. If you need an audience to perform, you're not ready. If you need praise to continue, you're weak. If you need comfort to get started, you will always be average. Train unseen. Work uncelebrated. Win unannounced. The day will come. It always does. When your results walk into the room long before you even speak. And they'll call it luck. Let them. You'll know the truth. The loneliness deepens after the first phase. That's when most people quit. Not because it's hard, because it's quiet. There are no messages, no recognition, just the echo of your own breathing, reminding you that nobody's coming. Good. This is where the separation happens. He stopped measuring his progress by how he felt. Feelings are unreliable. They shift with your sleep, the food you eat, the weather, your ego. So he measured by output. Did the work get done? Yes or no. There were no emotions attached, no excuses negotiated. Some days his body screamed. Joints were stiff, his mind heavy, vision narrow. He went anyway. Not recklessly, but deliberately. There's a discipline in knowing the difference between pain that destroys and pain that sharpens. Weak people don't know the difference. They avoid both. He didn't. He learned to suffer clean. No drama, no complaining. just breath control and execution. That skill alone put him ahead of 90% of people. Because most don't lose to failure. They lose to discomfort. Discomfort exposes the truth. It strips away your identity. Your titles mean nothing under strain. Only your habits remain. And his habits were violent in their consistency. Same hour, same place, same standards. Even when progress stalled, especially when progress stalled, that's where discipline proves itself. Anyone can work when results are coming fast. Only the dedicated work when nothing seems to change. Weeks passed, then months. There were no breakthroughs, no miracles. Just slow, silent accumulation. Strength layering on top of strength. Endurance stacking quietly. Mental resistance thickening like armor. He started noticing something strange. The voice that used to argue, the one that used to beg him to quit, it got quieter. Not because it disappeared, but because it learned it wouldn't win. The mind adapts to authority. When you never negotiate with yourself, it stops negotiating back. That's real power, not hype, not aggression, control. He became hard to impress, hard to distract, hard to break. Comfort started to feel foreign. A sense of restlessness replaced the need for entertainment. He didn't chase peace. He chased readiness. Because peace without strength is fragile. And he refused to be fragile. The people around him stayed the same. Same routines. Same excuses. Same complaints. They seemed to age faster. Not physically, but internally. Softness accumulates too. He noticed it in their eyes. The dullness. The delay in their response. The constant need for stimulation. So he pulled away. Not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Weak environments dilute strong intentions. He chose isolation over explanation. Solitude over sabotage. That decision cost him comfort, but it bought him clarity. In the silence, patterns emerge. You see where your time leaks. You see where your energy drains. You see who slows you down. He cut them out without apology. Less talk, less noise. More precision. Training became a ritual. It wasn't driven by motivation anymore. It was driven by identity. This is what I do. This is who I am. No alternatives were considered. When his body adapted, he raised the standard. When his mind adapted, he removed the rest. Progress wasn't celebrated. It was expected. That's how dominance grows. When success becomes your baseline, he stopped fantasizing about outcomes. Visualization is cheap. Execution is rare. He focused only on the next rep, the next step, the next controlled breath under load. Micro wins, daily enforcement. That's the unsexy truth of it all. Nobody talks about the boredom, the repetition, the numbness that sets in. But that numbness is just a phase. And those who endure it, they emerge dangerous. Because they don't rely on excitement. They rely on structure. And structure doesn't break. One night, exhausted, sore, and completely alone, he caught his reflection in the mirror. His eyes were steady. His posture was solid. There was no rush in his movements. Something had fundamentally changed. It wasn't confidence. It was certainty. Certainty doesn't announce itself. It just settles in. It's the kind that doesn't need reassurance from anyone. The kind that doesn't flinch under pressure. The kind that just waits. Because it knows. And that's when it all clicked. The training wasn't the point. The suffering wasn't the point. Ownership was. Ownership of his mind. Ownership of his reactions. Ownership of standards that no one else could ever lower. He trained when no one watched, so no one could ever control him. And in that, he found true freedom. Thanks for watching. Keep pushing. The third phase is where identity gets stripped. Not built, destroyed. This is where the fantasy of becoming someone dies, and what's left is what you actually are. He stopped calling it training. Training implies an end, a goal, a finish line. This had none. This was the maintenance of dominance. Because weakness doesn't disappear. It waits, it watches. It returns the moment your standards slip. So he stayed alert. Sleep-deprived mornings, hollow evenings, days stacked with pressure and no release. This is where most men start lying to themselves. That little voice creeps in. I deserve a break. I've done enough. I'm already ahead. But that voice isn't fatigue. It's entitlement. And he learned to kill it early. Not with hype or motivation, but with rules. Rules don't care about your mood. Rules don't negotiate. Rules don't feel sorry for you. He lived by them. Train first. Talk later. Earn your rest. Repeat. Life became narrow, focused, almost brutal in its simplicity. And then, something dangerous happened. He stopped reacting. Stress didn't spike him. Conflict didn't move him. Insults just bounced off. Emotional volatility is a weakness, and he had burned that out through sheer repetition under load. When chaos hits a man like him, it doesn't find panic. It finds structure. Others needed noise to feel alive: music, crowds, constant validation. He started to need silence. Silence told him the truth. Silence showed him the gaps in his armor. Silence forced accountability. That's why most people avoid it. Silence is a mirror, and most men don't like what they see reflected back. But he did, because mirrors don't lie. He saw the damage, the scars, the habits he had formed under extreme pressure. And instead of trying to fix them gently, he reinforced them brutally. Grip stronger, breath slower, movements cleaner. No wasted motion, no wasted words. Efficiency replaced enthusiasm. And that's when he crossed the line. He went from being disciplined to being inevitable. Inevitable men don't rush. They don't need to prove anything. They don't posture. They just prepare. So when big opportunities finally appeared, he didn't feel a rush of excitement. He felt familiarity. Pressure felt normal, because he already lived there. Others cracked when the stakes got high. Their hands would shake. Their minds would scatter. But his just narrowed. Stress sharpened him. Because stress was no longer a threat. It was a signal. A signal that it was time to execute. This is what happens when you train without witnesses. When your entire nervous system adapts to solitude. When your confidence comes from receipts and results, not from words. You stop hoping. You stop wishing. You stop waiting for permission. You just act. And here is the part they never tell you about reaching the top. Winning doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels quiet. There's no rush, no disbelief. It's just confirmation. Like checking a box you always expected to check. That's the real price of true preparation. You rob victory of all its drama. And that's a good thing. Drama is for spectators. Control is for operators. He didn't become cold. He became exact. He could turn it on, and he could turn it off. Most men are stuck on, always reactive, emotional, and running on fumes. He learned to conserve his energy like a weapon, only spending it where it mattered most. And when people finally started to notice, when eyes followed him into rooms, when conversations stopped when he walked in, he didn't enjoy it. Because by then, he understood something final. Attention is just the tax you pay for dominance. And he was already rich in something far better. Self-command. He trained when no one was watching, so that when the world finally looked, it was already too late. After inevitability, something colder arrives. Maintenance. This is where legends disappear from the public eye. Not because they fell off, but because they stopped needing to prove anything to anyone. He didn't chase new goals. Goals are for men without direction. He enforced standards. Standards don't have an expiration date. Your wake-up time, your work output, the physical demands you place on yourself, the mental restraint you practice, these are non-negotiable. The days blurred together, one flowing into the next. That isn't a flaw. It's the very definition of efficiency. When every day looks the same, weak men start to panic. They crave novelty and distraction. But strong men, they compound. The small, consistent efforts build on each other, creating something immense over time. There were no more sudden breakthroughs to announce. No new personal records worth posting about. No visible leaps that would get everyone talking. There was only refinement. The angles became tighter. The timing grew sharper. Every error, no matter how small, was hunted down and erased from the system. This is the stage where the ego makes its last stand. It whispers in your ear, trying to pull you back to comfort. You're already enough. You've earned a break. You don't need to push this hard anymore. But that voice is just decay wearing the mask of wisdom. He learned to ignore it completely, because comfort is never a neutral state. It either serves as recovery for the next strike, or it eats your discipline alive. He chose the first, always. Food became fuel, meticulously planned. Sleep became a strategy for peak performance. Training sessions turned into calibration, fine-tuning the machine. Nothing was driven by emotion anymore. Emotion clouds judgment, and in this world, judgment is everything. He learned to feel pain without reacting, to receive immense pressure without flinching, to hear disrespect and offer nothing in return, because reaction gives your power away. So he kept it all. His silence wasn't an absence of thought. It was a fortress of restraint. People often mistook it for emptiness or weakness. That quiet observation always amused him. They couldn't see the stored violence, the controlled capacity, the hair-trigger readiness to act without a single word of warning. That's what true isolation builds. Not loneliness, but complete and total authority over yourself. He didn't need motivational quotes on his wall or reminders on his phone of who he was. His routine reminded him every single morning with the cold certainty of the sunrise. And here's the final, brutal truth of it all. Most men don't fail in a spectacular, explosive moment. They just drift. They loosen their standards slowly, one small compromise at a time. They negotiate with their own principles, just this once. Then they do it again, and again, until one day, they wake up soft, and they can't even remember when the change happened. But he remembered, because he never, ever stopped watching himself. That is the real discipline. It's not about grinding until you break. It's not about glorifying suffering. It's about constant self-surveillance. It's about catching the first sign of weakness early, correcting it without mercy, returning to your form immediately. There's no shame. There's no drama. There is only correction. Years can pass like this, quiet, controlled, unseen by the outside world. And then, when the pressure is at its absolute highest, when the stakes are real, when everyone else is emotional, chaotic, and loud, he moves. Not fast, never rushed. He moves with precision, and that's the moment when people finally understand. The calm wasn't passivity. The silence wasn't fear. The restraint wasn't softness. It was readiness. A readiness that was built over thousands of hours, over years, when no one was watching, when no one cared, when quitting would have been the most logical thing to do. And that's precisely why this kind of man doesn't need to watch motivation videos. He doesn't need rah-rah speeches or a pat on the back. He doesn't need anyone's permission to be great. He already knows the truth deep in his bones. The work never, ever ends. The edge never gets to relax. The standard never, ever lowers. Not for a single day. Not ever. Because once you've lived on this level, once you've tasted this kind of control and power over yourself, anything less feels like death. And he refuses to die while he is still breathing. Thank you for watching. There's one stage left, the one nobody prepares you for. It's when discipline no longer feels heroic, when pain no longer feels meaningful, when even domination feels normal. This is where men disappear, not because they quit, but because they stop needing an identity. He stopped thinking of himself as disciplined, Labels are just crutches. He just did what had to be done. Daily, precisely, without a narrative. There are no inner speeches. No self-talk. No drama at all. Just action. This is dangerous territory, because without emotion, you're left with truth. And truth is heavy. He realized something brutal. No one was ever coming to save him. No reward was ever guaranteed. No legacy was promised. And strangely, that freed him. He wasn't grinding for meaning anymore. He was operating because operation was required. Like a machine that doesn't ask why. Like a blade that doesn't care who it cuts. Men fail here because they crave meaning. They want their suffering to mean something. But he didn't. He let it be empty. And in that emptiness, he found stability. No highs, no lows. Just baseline power. That's when fear finally lost its grip. Fear needs imagination. Fear needs a future. Fear needs ego. He had none left for it to exploit. Loss? Acceptable. Death? Eventual? Pain? Temporary. Nothing shocked him anymore. That's the point where a man becomes unshakable. Not because he's hopeful, but because he's resolved. Resolved to act correctly, regardless of the outcome. This is stoicism without the romance. Discipline without applause. Strength without an audience. He wasn't happy. He wasn't miserable. He was aligned. Aligned men don't hesitate. They don't spiral. They don't second guess. They execute. People around him sensed it, but they couldn't name it. There was no aggression, no loud confidence. Just a quiet certainty that he would not break. They felt unsafe around that. Not because he was violent, but because he was uncontrollable. You can't manipulate a man who doesn't need approval. You can't threaten a man who has already accepted loss. That is real power. And here's the final line they never tell you. This path costs you everything superficial. Friends, distractions, comfort, noise, and in return, it gives you yourself. Unfiltered, unmovable, unowned. He trained when no one was watching, until even he stopped watching himself. Because the work had become automatic. And once discipline becomes automatic, you are no longer fighting life. You are imposing order on it. That's not motivation. That's command. And once a man reaches command, he never goes back. Ever.